You're good to go.
Cool. Thank you. Let me start again. Molweni, Sanbonani, Dumelang, Thobela, Lochani, Dimacheroni, Goeiemorgen, Hola, Bonjour, Habari. Good morning, colleagues, distinguished panelists and members of the public. It is such an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to today's Lekgotla Batho on the digital empowerment of role-based community media entities. My name is Fumani Jwaga, an adjunct academic in public relations, and I will be your program director. I'm not alone in being program director, as I have the pleasure to co-direct today's session with my colleague and rising academic talent herself, Ms. Charlotte Mahlangu, who too is an adjunct academic in public relations. Together, we will do our best to ensure that there is a seamless program and while sticking to time and hopefully ending on time. We're crossing fingers on hopefully ending on time. And hopefully the conversation unravels and we just go on until the end of the day.
Good morning, colleagues. As my colleague has alluded, I am Charlotte and I'll be your program director for the day. Thank you, Mr. Jwaga. Indeed, we are currently living through a period of rapid digital transformation where communication ecosystems are increasing, shaped by platform technologies and data-driven media system. While these developments have expanded possibilities for communication and participation, they have also deepened existing inequalities, particularly between urban and rural spaces and between well-resourced and under-resourced.
In many rural contexts, community media remains one of the most important forms of local communication infrastructure. These platforms are not just information channels, they are spaces for cultural preservation, local storytelling, civic participation, and community accountability. They are often the lifelines for information in areas where mainstream or commercial media may be limited in reach, relevance, or even representation.
Now, this is why today's webinar is very important. It invites us to think critically and creatively about what it means to empower rural-based communities and media entities in a digital age, not only in terms of access to technology, but in terms of skills development, institutional sustainability, creative innovation, and the ability to shape narrative from within communities themselves. With that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn to our speakers who will help us to explore these ideas further through their research, practice, and lived experiences. Before we get into this discussion, we cannot start without Umama Wetu, the head of the house, to come and welcome us, Prof. Rufiwa, our chair of the Department of Communication Science, who will give us the opening remarks and official welcome. Prof, before you come in, can you please flash your camera so that people will know who is Prof? Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Prof. Mukudana. Prof, the floor is yours.
Good morning, program directors, and good morning, colleagues. I think Prof is not here, but if she's here, she will continue. But in her absence, as her deputy, I always take this role, and I think I should do that. I understand that she's attending another meeting with the English department. All right. In this fashion, I would like to appreciate the program directors and the organizers of Lekgotla Batho Engage Scholarship Program, Digital Empowerment, which include esteemed role players in the digital community media sector, particularly those situated in the rural areas. As the program directors have already encapsulated the essence of indigenous community entities, it is also important to expound on the praxis between digital media entities and digital migration itself, particularly how these community media entities fare in the digital competitive market. For many years, we have perused from various scholars that most of community media entities from the global south grapple with sustainability issues, particularly aspects around financial sustainability and corporate governance. Therefore, it is critical to explore those aspects, and you cannot explore these aspects in isolation. Hence, in this gathering, it is ideal to hear from the stakeholders. Those are the pertinent voices in the indigenous community media industry in the South African context. Different role players have different experiences, and we are going to use this platform to reflect on those aspects. As we know that the South African media ecosystem really position community media entities at the margins, at the periphery. And we know for many years, most of South African publications, as we have publications such as Siponi and Tabela represented here, they've been grappling with digital migration, and some of them decided to shut down their print version. We know what happened to City Press, we know what happened to Daily Sun, and so on and so forth. But because of the role that these community media entities play, maybe for them there is still a need to print more copies. I know some of them, they play a critical role in terms of social development in the rural schools. They help learners to read Xitsonga because of the scarcity of literacy material in Xitsonga and Sepedi. That's where your Siponi play a critical role around this space. But without ignoring the emergence of digital media platforms such as Perfect Radio that is rooted deep in the rural areas of Limpopo. So those are the voices that should be amplified in terms of highlighting the decolonial component of media studies in the global south. So in these few words, I think everyone should feel welcome, and this engagement will really amplify and expound on these critical issues of avoiding to ignore community media entities, but because for many years they've been marginalized, they've been suppressed because they really play a role in a competitive media market. Everyone's welcome, and I hope we will learn a lot from all the speakers today, and everyone should feel free to engage when it comes to Q&As. And I thank you so much, colleagues and program directors. Over to you. Thank you, Kanimambo Kelabagut.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malachi, for the warm welcome. We really appreciate it. And indeed, we cannot engage with indigenous community media in isolation, as their voices and the contributions that they make to the South African media ecosystem cannot be viewed in the peripheries. Their voices are just as important as mainstream or commercial entities. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Ms. Lebohang Mokoni, who will introduce our first speaker. Ms. Mokoni is an adjunct academic in public relations. But before she does the introduction of our first speaker, I'd like to ask that all our speakers, before they speak, to switch on their cameras, even for 10 seconds, just so that we can see who you are. We can say hello from our screens as well before you go into your presentations. Ms. Mkoni, please do the right thing.
Good morning, fellow colleagues. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Finally got it right. Our first speaker for today is Dr. Cedric Baloyi, who will be taking us through the topic on sustainability of the rural-based community media in South Africa. Now, Dr. Cedric Baloyi is a senior lecturer in the Department of Communication, Media and Information Studies at the University of Limpopo. He obtained a PhD in Media Studies from the same university in the year 2021. Dr. Baloyi joined academia after working as a journalist and current affairs news producer at the South African Broadcasting Corporation, also known as SABC, between the years 2014 and 2022. As part of his academic contribution, Dr. Baloyi has published papers in the form of journal articles, conference proceedings, and book chapters. His research interests include broadcasting studies, media and society, media and indigenous languages, and educational media. Ladies and gentlemen, Bomme Libontate, let us give a warm UNISA welcome to Dr. Nhlaisi Cedric Baloyi.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I hope I am visible and audible. Let me start by greeting the program directors, Mr. Dwaha Fumani and Ms. Charlotte Mahlangu, and also appreciate the chair of the department, Professor Mkhudwana, the deputy chair, Dr. Malaji, and other colleagues who are in our midst, and also some other speakers who will join at the later stage, the likes of Professor Litswalo, Dr. Bupape, Mr. Raymond Silowa, Mr. Nzamwisi, Professor Renz, and others. Let me greet you all, and I hope we are all doing well. And if you permit me, can I shut the video so that I can focus on the presentation?
Yes, Doc.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, my presentation, colleagues, is titled Sustainability of the Rural-Based Community Media in South Africa. And this study focused much on community newspapers as one of the component of community media. Now, if we check the digital transformation of the media industry, has forced newspapers across the world, to rethink their operations and business models. And traditional print newspapers, ultimately are shifting to digital platforms because audience now consume news through websites, social media, and mobile applications. Now, literature has shown us that digital migration has significantly transformed the way news is produced, distributed, and consumed, not only in South Africa, but at a global stage. Now, community newspapers, particularly those publishing in indigenous languages, play an important and critical role in preserving languages, promoting community development, and giving marginalized communities a voice. They are called the voice for the voiceless. Now, however, these newspapers continue to experience serious sustainability challenges. And literature has shown us that community newspapers often struggle because of inadequate resources and poor governance structures. Now, the literature also points out that insufficient advertising revenue, poor sponsorship, and unstable readership contributes to the decline of community newspapers. Now, this study or the literature further highlights that indigenous languages, newspapers struggle to attract broader audience because many readers still perceive indigenous language publications as less valuable compared to the mainstream media. Now, the literature also emphasized that indigenous newspapers remain marginalized within the competitive media landscape. Now, against this background, ladies and gentlemen, this study, investigated whether digital indigenous community newspapers are surviving or collapsing in the digital era. Now, the main purpose of this study was to investigate the sustainability of digital indigenous community newspapers in South Africa, using a community newspaper in Limpopo province as a case study. Now, the study specifically sought to examine the impact of digital migration on digital community newspapers, to explore sustainability challenges affecting community newspapers, analyze the business model of this community newspaper in the digital era, and also to identify possible strategies that may improve sustainability of these community newspapers. Now, literature has shown us that, you know, community newspapers are have historically played a major role in community development, education, health awareness, you know, literacy promotion, since some of the newspapers are being used at schools, you know, and political participation. Now, literature has shown us that, if I can quote Malachi 2014, indicated that indigenous newspapers were also used to resist colonial and apartheid domination in Africa, and in South Africa to be particular. Now, several indigenous newspapers became important platforms for marginalized communities. You know, for example, Ilanga Natal gave voice to oppressed communities during apartheid. Iwe Irohin promoted the Yoruba language and African consciousness. You know, in Nigeria, Umtuyo promoted Isindebele journalism and indigenous communication. So scholars have argued that colonial media excluded indigenous languages or indigenous African voices and identities. Now, as a result, African intellectuals, you know, such as John Dewey, Sol Plaatje, and others, established alternative newspapers, you know, to stimulate political consciousness and resistance among Black communities. The literature, ladies and gentlemen, also reveals that digital transformation has disrupted the traditional newspaper industry globally. And scholars such as Adiye and Salau have explained that many print newspapers perceive digital migration as a threat to their financial sustainability. The literature also argues that traditional and digital media can coexist, with traditional media serving older generations while digital media targets younger audience, since they are perceived as heavy users of digital media platforms. Nonetheless, younger people increasingly consume news through smartphones and social media platforms. Now, literature also highlights that companies now prefer advertising through digital platforms, you know, such as your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and other social media platforms that we can think of. Now, this shift has negatively affected newspaper advertising revenue, because digital advertising is cheaper and reaches broader audience. Malaje and Mutiba also argued that digital advertising provides greater audience engagement than traditional newspapers. Now, the literature further indicates that indigenous community newspapers face additional challenges, you know, such as poor circulation, limited audience reach, language barriers, and weak marketing strategies. Scholars, you know, respected scholars such as Salau also argues that indigenous newspapers remain marginalized, you know, because their target audiences often fail to support them financially. Now, literature further identifies financial sustainability as the major challenge facing community newspapers. The likes of Muswede explain that advertisers prefer media platforms with large audience and stronger market visibility. Now, community newspapers struggle because they generate limited advertising revenue. Their circulation numbers are low. They often rely on government supports and donations. Now, their communities sometimes fail to support them consistently. Scholars such as Salau, Malaje, and others also argue that financial sustainability is central to the survival of indigenous newspapers. Now, the literature also discusses the impact of the digital divide. Many rural communities still lack access to smartphones, computers, and affordable internet data. Now, this limits access to digital newspapers and weakens digital sustainability. Now, this study was anchored adopted the technological determinism theory, to analyze the sustainability of digital community newspapers. Now, scholars such as Fourie, explain that this theory, extrapolates how technology drives social and institutional transformation. Now, technological determinism also argues that it reshapes, human communication, business operations, and social structures. Now, in the context of this study, technology is viewed as both disruptive force that challenges traditional news models and also an opportunity for innovation and audience expansion. Now, the theory is relevant because newspapers have been forced to transition from print to digital platforms to remain relevant, as Dr. Malaji has alluded as he was welcoming us. Now, technological advancements such as online journalism, website and social media continues to reshape media operations. Now, the study therefore uses technological determinism theory to explain the decline of traditional newspaper systems, the rise of digital journalism, the restructuring of newspaper business models, the sustainability challenges affecting indigenous newspapers. Now, this study adopted exploratory research and design because the use of digital indigenous community newspapers has not been extensively researched. Now, qualitative research approach was employed to collect in-depth data from the experiences and about the experiences and challenges faced by community newspapers. And the researchers selected a community newspaper in Limpopo province as a case study. Now, this paper publishes in Sotho sa Leboa or Northern Sotho or Sepedi. It has operated for more than 20 years, and it represents indigenous community newspapers in rural South Africa. Now, data was collected through semi-structured interviews conducted through online via Google Meet with the founder and the editor of this particular paper. Now, and the data was analyzed through reflective thematic analysis where themes, emerged from the data. Now, the first theme which was as imaged has to do with skill development and online journalism. Now, this study has found that digital journalism requires multimedia and technological skills. Journalists are expected to upload stories regularly, produce multimedia content, use images, audio, and video in a particular story. So journalists are expected, to integrate all these aspects in one story. So which comes as a challenge if no proper training has been conducted. Now, they are also expected to manage websites, effectively. However, the study, has discovered that the paper explains the shortage of skilled journalists and digital expertise. Now, the findings also reveal that some journalists, lack knowledge of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence in journalism. Now, people find it very difficult. How do they operate with AI in presence without proper training, without proper guidance on how to integrate all these mushrooming technologies and innovations within journalism? Now, another theme which emerged, ladies and gentlemen, has to do with business model and sustainability of these newspapers. Now, the newspaper relied mainly on advertising, revenue, newspaper sales, and government advertorials. Now, interestingly, the newspaper continued selling copies for R1 for more than 20 years because management feared, losing readers if prices could increase. And this also affects, how they should generate the income because they need that in order to sustain themselves and continue serving the public. Now, the study found that advertising revenue was insufficient. Sometimes the owner had to use his personal money to sustain the operations, and digital migration had not yet improved the profitability at that particular time. Ladies and gentlemen, another theme which emerged from the data has to do with government policy support. Now, the study established that government institutions such as Media Development and Diversity Agency assisted with establishing community media. However, participants, the study argued that government support focuses mostly on establishing newspapers rather than sustaining them. So they will assist with funds for one to establish a community media entity, but it is your responsibility to ensure that you sustain it. And without proper business model, it is quite difficult. And without the support, it has proved to be quite difficult. Now, you have to ensure that you come up with some other mechanisms to ensure that you sustain the publication. Now, the study also found that some government officials, deliberately avoid supporting newspapers that exposes, corruption and governance failures, thereby undermining democratic accountability. Because they are saying, there's this thing that you cannot bite the hand that feeds you. So if you are owning a small community media, it is quite difficult now, because you still rely on these donations, and now you're afraid to expose maybe corruption from a particular municipality or particular councillor in a community. Now it becomes so difficult for you as a media journalist to expose such corruptions and ill, which are experienced by the community. Now, another theme, ladies and gentlemen, which emerged from this study has to do with issues of digital divide and accessibility. Now, the digital divide emerged, as a major challenge affecting sustainability. Now, many community members, ladies and gentlemen, cannot afford internet data, lack of smartphones or computers, and have limited digital literacy. Without understanding how to use these technologies, sometimes it creates a chaos and challenge for the user. And older generations specifically struggle to access digital newspapers. Now, as a result, the newspaper continued using a hybrid model, which combines the print and digital distribution to ensure that they cover for both sets of audience, those who can use and have access to digital platforms, and those who cannot, particularly in rural areas of Limpopo, where it is quite even difficult to have access to the internet. Now, another theme is to look at the recommendations, which can be adopted to try and sustain these newspapers. Now, collaboration between newspapers, community newspapers, is one of the recommendations where they have to work together as much as they are competing, but they have to work together and support one another. Partnerships with radio stations also assist, where they can share news and advertorials, they collaborate. It also assists and increase the use of social media and WhatsApp, to market their establishment, strong audience engagement, through digital platforms. If the newspaper has a Facebook page or X page, you can always engage, because immediately when you upload your stories, you expect audience to interact, as opposed to the print where they have to write the letter, which takes time. So through digital platforms, they can easily engage with the audience. Now that engagement, ensures that people now tend to be interested. People now tend to engage more, and when they engage more, they read your stories, and when more people are reading stories, then you can use the data analytics, to use that data and now look for advertisers who can come and sponsor, because advertisers need numbers. Now, community participation in news production, ensure that your community is involved. Work with them to ensure that you get proper news which reflects what is taking place in the community. Now, the study also emphasized the importance of skills development, financial sustainability, strong government support, and effective marketing strategies. These aspects, they are very important for an community media entity to survive. You need to ensure that journalists are trained well, they know how to use digital platforms, they know how to apply multimedia, they can integrate voice, image, and sound in a story, in a text, use of hyperlinks and so forth, to ensure that it is engaging. Whoever is going to read your story will be able to move around. So journalists must also have that skill. Issues of financial sustainability need to be there. Financial literacy also needs to be there. Mechanisms to try and raise revenue has to be there, and strong government support. In other words, the government must ensure that they play a critical role, check the policies that are available, whether they're still relevant, and if they're not, they need to be reviewed and ensure that they corroborate with what is happening on the ground, and also ensure that there's implementation of such policies. Effective marketing strategies is also important. Ensure that you maximize your marketing ways to ensure that you attract more audience. Now, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the study concludes that indigenous community newspapers remain essential. They are very important for indigenous language preservation. They are important for community development, democratic participation, rural communication. Although digital migration creates opportunities for broader audience reach and lower printing costs, it also introduces serious sustainability challenges, And some of these major challenges include weak business models, poor digital skills, insufficient funding, weak marketing, and also a digital inequality, use of digital divide. Now, the study also argues that the sustainability of indigenous community newspapers depends on strong digital innovation, financial support, audience engagement, government policy implementation, and also improved technological accessibility. Now, as a researcher now, I recommend that journalists should receive multimedia and digital journalism training. Community newspapers should strengthen their online marketing strategies. Government should provide, stronger financial and policy support. Digital platforms and social media should be maximized for audience engagement. Rural communities should receive improved internet infrastructure. So government must work hard here to ensure that no one is left behind. The issue of digital divide needs to be addressed. So improved internet infrastructure and affordable data access. Community newspapers should strengthen collaboration with other entities and platforms, including radio stations and local media stakeholders. Now, ladies and gentlemen, also in closing remarks, I can indicate that indigenous community newspapers are more than a business entity. They are instruments for cultural preservation, indigenous language promotion, social inclusion, community empowerment, democratic participation, and their survival in the digital age is therefore essential for sustaining indigenous voices and community development in South Africa. Now, this brings me to the end of my presentation, and I thank you very much for your audience and time. Thank you very much. Back to the program director.
Thank you very much for such an engaging presentation, Dr. Baloyi. It was insightful and detailed. As you stated, that community media serves a good cause. However, failure to sustain them will lead to loss of language, community development, and education, amongst others. It also gives us an opportunity to know that there is a need for online newspapers to collaborate. Traditional newspapers need to collaborate to have a strong online presence. Thank you so much, Dr. Baloyi. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving right along with the program. I would like to welcome Ms. Innocentia Ramayifo, who is an adjunct academic in public relations, who will give the introduction of the next speaker. Ms. Ramayifo, the platform is yours.
Thank you, program directors. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My role today is to introduce our second speaker, Mr. Raymond Silowa, a 31-year-old renowned South African media professional founder and station manager of Perfect Radio, which is a community-centric station launched on July 13, 2021. Initially broadcasting from a bedroom in Rasiapole, the station relocated to the Mukokwaila Community Multipurpose Center in Tzaneen, Limpopo. Mr. Silowa's educational background includes a degree in media studies from the University of Limpopo. Under his leadership, Perfect Radio has become a hub for local content, music, and sports, offering internship opportunities to recent graduates to combat unemployment. To date, Mr. Silowa has created opportunities for 25 graduates who are doing internships on Perfect Radio. The station, under Mr. Silowa's guidance, has garnered multiple accolades, including the Mayor's Special Award from the Greater Letaba Municipality in 2024, the Mulotodzi Second Appreciation Award in 2024, a commendation from the University of Limpopo Alumni and Convocation Center, and the Sekgopo Matsorang Foundation Award in 2025 for his contributions to community development. Before establishing Perfect Radio, Mr. Silowa worked at SABC Radio Sales as a voiceover artist and translator, and also hosted a radio entertainment slot on Thobela FM, earning him the Fame SA Awards for Best Radio Entertainment Reporter. Ladies and gentlemen, with a show of reactions and a warm round of applause, please join me in welcoming Mr. Raymond Silowa, who will present on the resilience of Perfect Radio in the digital media space. Over to you, Mr. Silowa.
Protocol observed. My name is Raymond Silowa. I'm the station manager and the founder for the Perfect Radio, which is known to be Radio Yagophila le Batho. So I will be talking about the resilience of Perfect Radio within the digital space. Perfect Radio that we are talking about is a radio station which is based in the rural area of Limpopo province and in Mukokwaila community hall. So before I could just share the background of this radio station, it's Raymond Silowa. I love radio. I love media. You can't talk about Raymond and not mention radio, the media. Even when I went to university to study, I went there to study radio. I didn't even know that it was called media studies. I went there to study radio. Just they said that it's called media studies. Whenever I'm alone, I find myself talking alone. I love radio. It's in my blood. So the reason why we are saying that the reason why we established this platform is because based on the experience and the education that we have acquired from the university as a graduate for media studies. So I found that there is a gap, the media gap, the media that were there at that time when we established this platform. We're focusing on the news around cities and towns. So you find that there are stories, the interesting stories happening around our communities. There are communities that are facing some challenges on daily basis. So they are not closer to the media that were available at that particular time. So we decided to establish this platform so that we could be there to listen to our communities. We could be there always be there for, I mean, to cover, to amplify their voices. So due to lack of enough funds, and you know, sometimes when you come up with something that has never happened before, you find that no one believes in it, because as a digital radio station, which requires data for you to access, so you find that the people will be negative, that as in the rural area, digital media, online media in the rural area, no one will listen to your radio station. No one will listen to something that they will have to buy data. Remember, people are struggling to buy data just to communicate on WhatsApp. So who is going to buy data to tune into your radio? So those are some of the ways that we used to hear. But just because we had the vision for this platform, you know, I just told myself that even if no one listens to it, so God listens to Perfect Radio. I will broadcast for God. And I became loyal to it. So people loved it. And at that particular time, remember, it was broadcasting from my bedroom. So people loved it. They wanted to visit it because of the content that we are producing, the content that we continue to impart, to provide to our community. So because you cannot just provide obvious information, you have to be creative. You have to provide information that no one can get it anywhere. Whether they search on the internet, they can't get it. It's a fresh information. You are the producer of this information. So we established the show like Summer Fatling program, of which is a show that is creating a content that is compelling for one to listen. And once you listen to that show, you will find that you will start to want more. So right now, as I'm speaking, Summer Fatling program that I'm talking about is just a show that goes around listening to people's problems and bringing solutions to those problems. So people started wanted to visit the station, and remember, it was broadcasting from my bedroom. So and the slogan at that time was the home of satisfaction. And now, because people wanted to visit it, and I cannot allow them to enter into my bedroom, so I turned the struggle of me not having a building into an opportunity, and turned the slogan from the home of satisfaction to Radio ya Batho. Meaning, if you have a problem, you just call, and we will come to where you are. And you know, there are people who are experiencing problems and they don't have money to go to town to access, or maybe to reach out to the media. So they don't have the money for transport to go to town. So instead of going to town or going to the cities, so we rather turn Perfect Radio into a radio that if you have a challenge, you just call and we will come straight to your house and put the microphone there, put the setup there in your house, and we broadcast straight from your house. So and people started to love it, and now we are, I would say, we are, in terms of numbers, we are the leading digital radio in Limpopo. Yeah, I will say in Limpopo, because I've not heard of any radio station that is doing like we do here on the Perfect Radio. So we provide various content, sports, news, and we are more about community engagement. So, and the most important part of it is that we are using the dialects Kilovedu. Remember, in Limpopo, we have this dialect Kilovedu, of which it was not recognized. So because there are many people who are interested to learn about Kilobedu. We go there and speak about Kilobedu and Rao, Legai. You find that even the older people, they start to want their children to play the perfect radio for them because they don't have the smartphone. Because it's something that is interesting and people are gravitating towards the perfect radio. So that's the background about the perfect radio. And in terms of the awards and recognition, we received the multi awards as the perfect radio from 2021 until now. We already received the award from Mayor Special Award from University of Limpopo. I mean, from Greater Letaba Municipality, Mayor, of which they honored the station with the Mayor Special Award for the contribution that we do to develop and to amplify the voices of the community members. And the Matsuran Sukhobo Foundation also appreciated the Perfect Radio for providing, for always keeping the Sukhobo community updated with the information all the time. And you know, we continue to be doing well. The Molodozi Circuit also appreciation award in 2024, awarding us for the positive educational and professional contributions that we are making towards the education. So in terms of sponsorship and partnership, Perfect Radio, remember, as a radio station, we are struggling, as an online media, we are struggling with the internet access. So we are partnered with Letaba Networks as a network service provider within the province of the Limpopo. They are providing us with free internet. So for us to be able to keep our communities updated, we have Makoshi Filling Station. These ones here, they are assisting us with, you know, when they say the petrol is expensive. So they are assisting us whenever our motor vehicle is empty, we just go there and they put the full tank so that we can continue to provide the community with the information, because we are bringing solutions to the community. You know, here I'm talking about the online radio station that whenever we attend the community, they are gathered in a community meeting, when they see the Perfect Radio logo, or maybe someone from Perfect Radio, they start clapping hands to see a hope to their problems that they're facing on a daily basis. Remesh Group is one of our partners. They are assisting us when we need to buy some equipment. If maybe we are struggling with some finances, they are assisting us so that we can be able to sustain the station. Diabetes Funeral Services, they are assisting us to keep us going. When we have challenges, we just call them to say, now we are stuck somewhere, we need something to keep us going. And then HW Science Printers Promotions, they are sponsoring us with branding. If we want the gazebos or the branding materials, we just design and submit to them so that they can print for us to be visible when we are attending the outside events, including in studio. So Tucson Service Center and the Resilience Properties, both of them, they are resilience properties are those that are the landlords of the malls, Zanin Mall, Mall of the North, and the other malls. So these ones, they are providing us, I mean, we are in an in-kind partnership of which they provide us space for us to broadcast in the mall. Whenever we want to broadcast from the mall, we go there and broadcast from the mall freely. And they are, I don't want to go further about that, but very soon you'll see Perfect Radio, even studios within the mall. So Tucson Service Center is where we are broadcasting live from right now. Simukwakwayila Tucson Service Center is government premises under the GCIS, Government Communications and Information Systems. They're the ones that are sponsoring us. They allocated us a vein for us to move from the bedroom to broadcast from the multi-people center called Tucson Service Center, so that we could be able to be visited and also to create jobs and training for service training for the interns. So in terms of advertising clients, we do have NCRF, Northern Cape. These ones are our biggest clients because they are always providing us with business for us to run. We will find that we are here as the Perfect Radio Broadcasting from Limpopo, but we are running the campaigns nationwide that are of nationwide. So we are provided by the NCRF from Northern Cape. NCRF Limpopo, whenever there are campaigns that needs to be run on the radio stations and other media in Limpopo, they are giving us the business to continue to run so that the people could be able to. And remember, we are the only radio station, the only online radio station getting this kind of business, because we are a radio with a lot of numbers. Right now, if we happen to broadcast a show like Summer Fatling that I told you about, and you find that within 30 minutes, or maybe as it happens, the show already has got 100,000 listeners as it happens. And remember, we're talking about something that is online, something that requires data. That there are some who said that one who's gonna listen to an online radio or an online media. So Mopani District Municipality, whenever they have imbizos, they do invite us to come and broadcast, to do live streaming, so that they can be able to assist us with the funds to sustain the platform. Lady Motors, VW Zanen is one of our clients. They are they've subscribed monthly, so that on monthly basis there is something that they put in our accounts for us to continue with the great work that we do for the community. And other local businesses such as the taxi associations, the law firms, and so forth. So they are doing business with us. So in terms of youth, the youth empowerment and job creations, we are partnered with MICT SETA, NSF, and Bank SETA. Whenever there are internship opportunities, we apply, and then they give us the budget for us to recruit and create training opportunities for the graduates. It's part of we are empowering the youth, and right now we are even 16 interns who are in the program right now, of which by end of June we will add 10, because we are now recruiting more of the media, journalism, communication students to come and do the internships here with the Perfect Radio. So to someone who wants to establish an online platform such as Perfect Radio, which is now the fastest growing digital radio station in South Africa, you have to love the media. When I started this presentation, I said that I love radio, and I rejected so many opportunities because I love radio. Yeah, so you must have passion for radio. The world is waiting for you, is waiting for you, is waiting for your ideas, your creativities. It's your time to show up. It's your time. The community is waiting for you to amplify their voices. Perfect Radio at this moment in time cannot reach out to the communities in Cape Town, the communities in Potchefstroom, communities in Tembisa. So the world is waiting for you to show up as the aspiring media premier, someone who wants to establish an online radio or online newspaper, online TV. So, and it's easy to establish such an online platform because the industry is open for everyone. The industry is open for everyone. It just requires you to stand up and show up and start exercising your journalistic skills. So always make sure that you provide balanced and accurate information to develop the trust with the community that you will be serving. Because by not doing so, you will end up in court. You'll end up getting sued for providing single-sided stories. Because right now, social media is full of single-sided stories of which people just copy the trending stories and putting on their platforms, and that's a danger in the media in the media industry. Avoid copying and pasting people's stories, because the moment you post or you broadcast unverified stories that you just copied from someone and you start uploading or running with it without verifying, you become the source of that information, because you took your platform and to impart information that is not accurate, or maybe that you are not even sure that is where did the originate of the information took it from. So you'll end up being in court and getting charged. And just imagine you are just a graduate falling into such traps, and then you have the criminal record now. You are getting charged, sentenced. So we have to avoid copying and pasting single-sided stories at all times. You can see a story and get interested in it, but then you have to dig more into that story to get the facts right. So Dr. Malaji, when you were still teaching us this journalism, this media, he used to say, when you provide imbalance and inaccurate information, possibly it's going to cause irreparable harm. Yeah, I still remember that, Dr. Malaji. So running media outlet is not about making money, because if you are gonna do it for money, just know that you are going to be captured, and then your information now will start to be biased. Right now we are heading towards the local government elections. So there are political events that are happening. When you run the local media or the media outlets for money, you are going to be biased, and the political parties that you are not covering, they will end up, seeing you as one of the people that are aligning with some political party some way. So you'll have a problem. Another thing I said, we started this without any venue, without any motor vehicle, without anything. So we started with the available resources that we had, and the available resource that I'm talking about having a smartphone. That's where it all started. So, and the laptop. So that's where it all started. Without Letaba networks, which provided me with the Wi-Fi, I was just buying data, and then from data to get sponsorship from Letaba network. So if I didn't start, I was not gonna have I was not gonna be having the sponsorship from Letaba network. So you just have to start, and then the rest will follow. Even in the Bible, it says, seek the kingdom of God first. The rest will follow. So in terms of challenges that we are facing on the Perfect Radio, financial sustainability is number one. Just that we are trying by all means to find the funds. You know, sometimes when you request for funding, I remember when we started Perfect Radio, people didn't understand. Remember, we are familiar with the traditional radio. When we talk about something that requires data, people, they don't see any bright future with it. So yeah, that was challenging. So when you request for sponsorships, they don't understand what you're talking
Mr.
about.
Siloa, kindly note
I'm
you
still
have
here.
3 minutes. You have 3 minutes remaining. Thank you. You may continue.
Okay, thank you. Also, not having enough equipment to strengthen local reporting is one of the challenges that we are facing, because you find that there are too many stories for us to attend, and you find that all the stories are of local importance. And so you find that we are having not enough, we are not even on enough resources to go and cover those stories. So another thing is the one for transport. You find that as a station manager, the transport is available at the station. You have to attend a meeting, and the meeting of which is going to benefit the station. And you find that there's also another story somewhere of which if you go using a public transport, you'll end up getting there late and find that the story is already over. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing. The fake social media accounts that there are people who are using our logo brandings to confuse our audience. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing. And then another one is the one for unreliable electricity grids, of which you find that there is load shedding. You have to upload a story, the network is off, it's no longer fast as it used to be. So, and even the audience that you want to communicate, they are also facing such a problem of which they cannot be able to access the information. As Perfect Radio, we are looking forward to expand our radio station to ensure that we are available nationwide, because the name itself, the reason why I didn't want to name it with a geographical area is because the name Perfect Radio itself is with unlimited possibilities, of which going forward we want to see ourselves growing bigger and as a national radio station. So thank you very much for your time. Just that there is too much information to share. Just because of time, I want to thank you for the opportunity that you gave me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siloa, for a robust and truly resilient presentation. And thank you for showing us what is possible in creating such an important platform for communities. You are closing the gap by amplifying the voices of our communities and highlighting that the community voice is the voice of the community. And a true testament. And we too share your love of radio. It's indeed in our blood. And in the name of the station, it's perfect. Up next, I'd like to welcome Ms. Sive Ginya, who is an adjunct academic in organizational communication, who will give us the introduction of the next speaker. Ms. Ginya, please do us the honors.
Good morning, colleagues. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Bobape. Dr. Popape holds a PhD in psychology, which he completed in 2021. He also obtained an MSc in psychology from Alabama A&M University in 1992, as well as an MBA from De Montfort University in 2000. Before that, he completed a junior secondary teacher certificate at Sitotolwane College, together with a BA degree and 2 honors degrees in psychology and theory of literature here at UNISA. Dr. Popape's professional journey began in education, where he worked as a high school teacher from 1979 to 1981. He then moved into teacher education, serving as a lecturer at a teachers training college from 1981 to 1994. In 1994, he returned to high school education as a headmaster before transitioning to the private sector in 2000. Alongside his professional work, Dr. Popape practices psychology part-time, offering services such as trauma debriefing, as well as individual, couples, and group therapy. His work supports people facing a range of psychological challenges, including anxiety, depression, and relationship difficulties. This morning, Dr. Popape will be presenting on a topic titled, What is Left to Conquer? The Chronicles of Sipone in a Competitive Media Market. Colleagues, please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Popape. The floor is yours, Doc.
Yeah. Sipone Madiring was established by Balaudi Publishers. It was established by Balaudi Publishers with seeding funding from PenSAB. And from PenSAB. The aim of PenSAB at the time when we started was, that was in 2002, the aim was to start newspapers, to establish newspapers in all African languages in the country. So we and a contemporary newspaper called Unoketwago were the first ones to be involved in this project. We were a trilingual newspaper that was publishing in Sotho-Leboa, Sepedi, Xitsonga, and Tshivenda, while Unoketwago was a bilingual newspaper publishing in isiNdebele and Seswati. Now, the idea with PenSAB was that because PenSAB had lexicography in all languages. And in our case here, we had lexicography units for Sotho-Leboa, Sepedi, we had one for Xitsonga and the other one for Tshivenda. They were expected to develop with them at the same time. They were expected to buy space in the newspaper from time to time where new terminology and other issues that the lexicography might want to take to the public could be published. Am I still audible?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay, but you know, that never really happened, because when we approached the lexicography units, they were very reluctant. In fact, they refused to cooperate, although they are institutions of PenSAB. Apparently, they had not agreed with PenSAB on their involvement in the project, and they never really came on board. So we were on our own. But what PenSAB did was to assist us in the first year, where they were providing what is called seeding funding, where they were helping us with printing and distribution costs. And of course, they were giving us some stipends to help for staff members. That was very helpful in that first year. And of course, it went in the second year. That's when PenSAB withdrew, and that's when we were faced with a reality, because now we're on our own with no funding, but we had to go on somehow. But you know, when the paper started, it had created a lot of excitement. And because of that excitement, from time to time, we would get some funding from government that assisted us in continuing. But also, I had just resigned from teaching, and well, I used my pension fund to try and get the product moving. So can you move to the next slide, please? Yes. So after Pensab withdrew and we're working on our own, using own funds to try and keep the paper running, we realized that it was very difficult. What made the whole project difficult was the fact that we were publishing in 3 languages. And because of that, we're doing our distribution throughout the province. But what made it quite costly was that in order for us to continue, we need to have staff. We needed to have journalists in all the 3 languages. And while I could do editing in Zulu and Sepedi, I couldn't do the same with Xitsonga and Tshivenda, and had to rely on as original speakers of those languages that I had to pay for that job. And because Pensab was no longer there, it was very difficult for me to continue doing that. So eventually in 2007, that's when we decided we could not continue being a trilingual newspaper, and we stopped doing work in Xitsonga and Tshivenda and focused on Zulu only. And then, fortunate for us, just when we were collapsing, we had funding from MDDA that assisted us a whole lot, because it kept us going. We're getting some money for printing, for distribution, and of course there were some stipends for people. I mean, for staff. That was a great help, and that went on. MDDA was very generous in many ways. It funded us on 3 separate occasions. But the problem with the problem that we had, one of the biggest problems that we had was that while there was initial excitement when the paper was first introduced, later on we realized that the people that really mattered was government. Because while people were excited about the paper, we needed to get funds to keep us running. And we were having serious challenges getting what you call support from government at all levels. And that made our going very, very difficult. And but we kept because I had just left teaching. I had a company that was doing training, so from time to time I would get some training jobs out there. I would go there, do some work, and then the money that I got would be put back into the newspaper to keep it running. And that is actually what helped sustain the paper. I had to keep putting in money to keep it going. Can you please move to the next slide? Now, Siponi did create a number of opportunities for people. One of the opportunities that was created was the fact that as a paper that was publishing in the language that was spoken by communities in our area, in Limpopo, for the very first time, people had a newspaper that they could read in their own newspaper. And we could have journalists, people that were people that were trained in journalism but did not have place where they could practice their skills. They had a newspaper that they could now work for. And the other thing was that schools had a problem. As you would know, we have nothing that's published in African languages in the form of newspapers, magazines, and journals, and so on. So with Siponi, there was now a resource that particularly schools could use for teaching and learning. You know, the paper was mostly used for helping kids with reading, with spelling, with comprehension, and also writing skills, because from the paper you could see how punctuation is done, where we're using capital letters, and so on and so on. That was what do you call it? That was a great opportunity for schools, but also for small businesses, most of whom never advertised in their life. They now had a paper in which they could, from time to time, do some advertising. Although there was a problem in that a lot of black people had never published before, and when you charge them for an advert, and you're saying it is a once-off thing, they were very unhappy and felt that advertising was costly, because what it meant is that with every issue you have got to pay money in order for your advert to appear there. But of course, the other thing that it did was to provide opportunity for government. You know, we were covering a lot of government stories, so some of the things that government was doing, we could take out to communities so that they got some ideas, they got some information regarding what government was doing. But also, we would cover some stories from communities, which in a way gave communities a voice, you know, a platform where their voices and views could be aired. And as I indicated, uh, with journalists, many journalists and marketing people, they get training in schools, but they need a place where they could go and do practical work. So the newspaper provided a platform through which, on which they could, you know, what do you call it? Use their skills to write stories and so on, which was, of course, an ongoing problem, because once you have trained people in these languages and they are able to write well, the next thing, before you know it, these people get picked up by government, by radio stations, by other employers, and would leave the paper, creating a situation where we had to do this task again and again and again, because we couldn't keep staff for long. Can we please move to the next slide? Now, challenges. Challenges. We had a number of challenges facing us. One of the challenges was this that I've just mentioned: lack of trained journalists. Because people go to schools and various institutions for training as professionals, but until now, I heard that the University of the Northwest at Potchefstroom has started, I think last year, offering some training in African languages. But otherwise, the education sector in the country is not poised, not prepared, is not doing anything to prepare journalists for African languages, because I suppose because our languages are marginalized and you know, they are hardly used. So we all had to train people all the time. But like I indicated earlier, as soon as these people are doing, you know, they are better professionals, they would get taken up by municipalities, government departments, radio stations, and so on. So we had a high staff turnover. And of course, one of the biggest problems, which is still a problem now, is that there's a negative attitude by us as Africans toward people's own languages. People feel like their languages are backward, they are inferior, they are undeveloped, and therefore many people don't really appreciate their languages. They'd rather read English stuff than, you know, do things in their languages, which of course meant that while you know, it is people that one could say are not that educated that enjoyed reading the paper, and of course they took a lot of pride in that. Of course, the other challenge that we encountered was that of the non-existence of reading culture. We don't have any, we hardly have any reading culture within Black communities. And of course, that's not very far to, I mean, the reason for that is not very far to find, to establish the fact that the books or reading material that's produced is only produced for academic purposes, for use in classrooms. Once one leaves the classroom, there is absolutely nothing that African people can read beyond the classroom. There's absolutely nothing, and what that does is you have a culture of reading, liking for reading, not cultivated among people. So getting them to read and appreciate a written newspaper was not an easy feat. But I believe over time, a lot of people started liking the paper. The other challenge that we had, though, was that of lack of appropriate and suitable terminology when we write in news, because you come across a computer, you come across a mouse, you come across a lot of this what do you call modern gadgets that we have that we never had in our culture, and for which therefore no terminology was ever developed. So we had to develop terminology as we went along. That was a challenge. And of course, the other challenge was rise in distribution costs, because we had to pay petrol, and we're distributing in, and continue even now is distributing in rural areas where roads are not properly kept, but where people stay. So what that did was to increase our both our production and distribution costs, because we keep repairing cars again and again. Now, and of course, because of poor support from government in particular, we were generating relatively very little revenue, which was making sustaining operations very, very difficult. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yes. Well, in 2014, okay, all right. Now I'll talk to this slide that I'm seeing, that is comparing traditional versus online information provision. Now, with the traditional way of providing information, where we print actual hard copy newspapers, which are tangible projects that can be handled manually. The thing with or the benefit with hard copies is that people can work very easily with them. They can underline them, they can highlight things, they can make copies of them, they can file them for future references, so that it's easier for them to keep going back to them. Now, and the other advantage with hard copies is that they can be shared by people, where after reading a newspaper is passed on to the next person, who, or after finishing, passes it on to the next person, so that one newspaper could end up being read by as many as 10 people. But of course, as I indicated, part of the challenge with the traditional news provision mechanisms is that printing and distribution costs make this way of providing news very, very costly, because of cost involved both in printing and distribution. And as I indicated earlier, in 2014 we moved over to we set up a website, and we started placing some information on the website with the hope of reaching more people. Now, one of the benefits with what you call or one of the challenges with online information provision is that data is quite costly, and because of that, it limits the potential for growth in this for online for online publishing, because many people cannot afford to keep buying data. And of course, the one thing with online content is that it is individualistic and very difficult to share with other people, because you get the information from your cell phone or your desktop, And unless you somehow copy it and pass it on to the next person, it remains individualistic, and therefore you don't get many people getting to see what anyone would have seen when they were going through the website. And of course, in order for the website to be useful, there is a need for very, very intensive promotion of the website so that people get to know about it. And when they know about it, then you can have more, you can draw more traffic. You can drive traffic to the website. And the bigger the traffic that visit your website, the more likely you are to then get some advertising from potential sellers. And of course, online publishing it's quite cheap compared to traditional way of sharing information, because here you don't have any printing costs, you don't have any distribution costs. It is the readers who incur some cost in buying data and so on in order to access the information. Can you please go to move to the next slide?
Doc, is it fine if I put it on the move to digital platform, because it was 2 slides before the one you were speaking on?
Okay, yes. This is in 2014. We that's when we moved to the what do you call, to a digital platform with a view or with the hope of reaching more people. And one of the first what do you call, website that we set up, the introductory part was done both in English and Sesotho sa Leboa, so that people can get to understand what it is that the website was trying to do. But the content of the website, the stories that were published there, were published wholly in Sesotho. We didn't want to have anything to do with English, and even now we still don't have anything in English. And even going into the future, we wouldn't want to have anything whatsoever in English, because the website is set purely for African people who don't have information. And of course, we linked the website with a Facebook account so that people can make comments and so on, make additions to our stories and so on, and give us feedback about what people were seeing from there. So that was quite helpful. And of course, we go to a level where that first website attracted as many as 3,000 people or more. And but then the problem we had was that the website was not generating any income, and therefore it was very difficult to sustain it. And eventually we sort of withdrew from it, and it eventually collapsed around 2016. Can we get to another slide, please? Now, we rethought the idea of a website, and in 2018 we started a new website that we now call Siponi Madiri. And like the first website, we linked this to Facebook so that we could get feedback and can get comments and so on from other people. But you see, unlike with the first what do you call, website, where we're only placing stories and stories only on the website, with the new one we realized that in order to attract advertising, it was important for us to from time to time also place adverts on the website so that people can see that we're not only providing information, but that they could also do some advertising there. So we've been doing that, and I think up to now, with some stories, they become they attract, they seem very interesting to people, and we've had as many as from the infographics that we get from time to time, we had as many as 5,000 people visiting the website, which is encouraging to us. We believe that what we need to do more of is to promote the website so that we could have more people visiting the website, because the biggest benefit of building traffic is that when you got a bigger traffic, you are then able to attract some advertising. Can you move to another slide, please? Yes. opportunities offered by digital publishing. The big thing with digital digital publishing is that it has got potential to reach more readers of different ages and different locations, because when things are on the website, they can be seen by people in Pretoria, Joburg, all over the country. It makes it much easier, and publishers can provide fresh information, in the sense that when you're doing online, we can on a daily basis, unlike a hard copy, which in our case was printed once in 2 weeks time. So after 2 weeks, that is history. The information is sort of stale. But with online publishing, you're able to add stories on a daily basis, meaning that as stories break, you're able to put some of them on the platform. And of course, if you've got a video capacity, you can also put stories there. People are able to see, to see videos of events, and we've tried a little bit of that. Although we still need to do more of it, doing videos so that people can get a touch of what's happening visually. And of course, the other thing is that that's which is an advantage of online media or publication, is that you can use text, you can use pictures, you can introduce, put in some where you got audio. You can also provide music. You can provide visuals, so sound is possible, and that's why one of the things that we now have on a website, which you cannot have on a newspaper. And of course, we get more regular feedback from people, which goes a long way in helping with innovation and improvements on what we are doing, because we keep getting this constant information. And of course, with online publishing, you're able to integrate ideas and contributions from readers into what you are publishing, which is very, very helpful, because readers become part of the project, and they are taking part in the project, and therefore develop more interest in it, and are able to tell more other people about what you are doing. Yeah, can we move on to the next slide? Now, comparison of traditional versus online provision. Hard copy newspapers are tangible products that can be manually handled, and I think I've indicated that a little earlier. They can be underlined, highlighted, copied, and filed for future reference, with the benefit being that you can keep going back to them. Is much easier doing that. And hard copies can be shared with many other people, either in its original form. Once somebody has read the paper, they pass it on to somebody else who, on completion, can pass it on, so that the whole family, or a large portion, a number of people, can end up reading that, which is, but as I indicated, printing and distribution costs are what is a problem with the traditional ways, because printing is very expensive, very expensive. And with the increase in petrol price, distribution is even more costly, which make that quite difficult. Whereas with the online information, as I indicated, potentially, it's less costly, because just working on your computer, uploading stories there. Although, of course, one thing does not change that much, which is gathering of information. Because
Sorry,
whether you are
Doctor.
online or using traditional ways of providing information,
Dr.
you still have to go
Mubakwe,
out there to communities.
you have 2 minutes, Doctor. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, was this the last slide?
Should I go to the last slide?
Yes, yes. Okay. Challenges offered by digital publishing. I indicated that a high cost of data is still a problem to sustain this kind of platform. And of course, there's a need for media for market segmentation, so that there's a specific group of people that one focuses attention on, be it youth, be it children or old people, whoever they might be, there's a greater need. Whereas with the newspaper, we're just writing news for everybody. And of course, the challenge is that it needs regular updates of content in order to sustain traffic, which means going out there on a daily basis to collect new information that could be added to the website. And of course, there's very stiff competition online with a lot of people offering different content. And therefore, when you go online, you have to know that there are many other people that you're going to have to compete with. And of course, the challenges of appropriate terminology, orthography, spelling, and so on remain a problem online, because you still must write text there, which has got to be a proper spelling, proper punctuation, and so on. Now, the biggest problem that we face is that of cultivating a reading culture, because people are not used to reading, and that has got to be cultivated. Takeaways. Currently, there's little or nothing in Mzansi that is published in indigenous African languages on any topic under the sun, which is a pity, because as African people, we are known not to read. But part of the problem is that there is absolutely nothing for us to read in our own languages. Because while our languages are said to be official, in reality, they are not. English remains the only official language in which government talks to communities, and therefore people don't get used to reading. Reading culture does not exist. And the few newspapers that are there that are published in African languages are always teetering on the brink of collapse, because government is simply just not involved in promoting this. Government, we have got an English-speaking government that does not communicate in African languages. So while there are major problems here, what you call in the media space, the problem of lack of reading culture and poor promotion and support of African languages leave us very vulnerable as society, because people don't have much to read. Potentially, online publishing would help bridge this gap. But for it to be effective as a tool, one will need to, generate this, change Africans' attitude toward their own languages, because it is us who are killing our languages. We believe we are some kind of English, but we can only be fake English speakers, because that's never our language. But because we're not doing much to promote these languages, to talk these languages, our people remained uninformed. I think I'll let me just leave it there, because I believe I've probably run out of time. But because that stuff is written there, I think people can get additional information from the slides. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Bubape. Ladies and gentlemen, may we please show our appreciation for Dr. Bubape. Thank you, Dr. Bubape, once again for engaging and great presentation. We appreciate it. Siboni is a true epitome of history in our community media. The effort of keeping the newspaper as a tri-language clearly showed your desire to achieve diversity. Also, we appreciate your resilience and passion to keep up the newspaper by personally financing it. Also, your contribution towards engaging schools shows an authentic communication visionary. Despite all the challenges, you managed to actively engage online and reach more audiences. We thank you very much, Dr. Bubape. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still on the program, and I would like to call upon Ms. Ontiredzi Modingwa, who is an adjunct academic in the media studies, who will introduce our next speaker. Ms. Modingwa, please take the platform.
Thank you very much to the program directors. Good morning, colleagues. Mine is to introduce our next speaker, Professor Napiadi Letswalo, who is currently the chair of the Department of Linguistics and Modern Languages at the University of South Africa. He holds a PhD in linguistics and specializes in phonetics and syntax. His research interests include parameology, lexicography, indigenous languages and gender, indigenous language development, language and politics, and youth registers. Professor Letsoalo has received numerous prestigious honors for his contributions to linguistics. In 2017, he was named Young Linguistic of the Year by the Linguistic Society of Southern Africa during the conference of the Language Associations of Southern Africa in Grahamstown. In 2018, he won the Best Paper Prize at the Language, Literature and Linguistics International Conference in Singapore, awarded by the Global Science and Technology Forum. His excellence in teaching was recognized by the University of South Africa with the Excellence Award in Tuition in 2019. In 2020, he received the Best Paper Award at the National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences Doctoral Conference. Further accolades include the Best Digital Humanities Collection Community Engagement Award in 2022, alongside being named a finalist in the Mail and Guardian 200 Young South Africans. In 2024, he was honored with the Pan South African Language Board Multilingualism Award in the youth category. Most recently, in 2025, he was appointed as a board member of the Pan South African Language Board and elected as its deputy chairperson. He is the chairperson of the College of Human Sciences Language Committee. Professor Letsoalo is also an editor and author. He is a researcher from Mzansi-Tal, the South African Lingo Dictionary and Encyclopedia. He co-edited the multilingual children's book, Chusha Moya Kids, Gamified Moral and Ethical Adventures in South African Languages, and serves as editor-in-chief of the UNISA Multilingual Proverbs Dictionary. He is the editor-in-chief of the Sovenga, a multilingual dictionary of proverbs and sayings. Additionally, he co-edited Soshanguve Paremiology Plus, a multilingual approach, which was the first multilingual open access book published by AOSIS. He is a founding member of the Linguistic Society of South Africa, underscoring his significant contributions to the discipline and unwavering dedication to advancing linguistic scholarships. Colleagues, may we give Professor Letsoalo a warm round of welcome using our reactions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me take this opportunity to also apologize for the long introduction that already took 5 minutes of my time. I will jump some of the slides because of that introduction. But thank you very much, colleagues. Can I check if you are able to see my slides?
Yes, we are, Prof.
All right, thank you very much. As you would have heard from the introduction, that I'm in the language space, so my presentation will be largely language oriented, but I will come in and indicate where the role of community media comes in and how indigenous languages can be used to support community media for impact in our society. I slightly changed the title of my presentation. As you are able to see there, it says Indigenous Languages, Community Media and Digital Preservation in South Africa. And I will be touching on how then do we prevent epistemic loss in this digital age that we find ourselves. There's quite a lot that is happening in this first slide of my presentation. You would see that there is a proverb that you are able to see in the book that is open there, a list of indigenous languages and different modes of gadgets or medium that we use for communication. And I particularly generated this slide here just to indicate that we are indeed in a digital age, and our indigenous languages need to also then move with time, and our community media as well need to adapt to the space that we are in, so that we are able to preserve our indigenous languages, and looking at who are we saying is consuming our who's consuming the media. So I want to start by problematizing my presentation. I think we all know that the contemporary digital age has transformed our societies, and there's that particular transformation has also shaped how we communicate, how we preserve our knowledge, and also how we construct our cultural identity, because language is not static and culture is not static, and we have to move with the times. And I think that is where community media comes in, because we've seen how across the world digital technologies have shaped education, media, governance. I think even the commerce and general our social interaction. And this is where my presentation will be centered, that within this rapidly evolving technological environment, we continue to see that our indigenous languages and the knowledge systems continue to be marginalized, and that's something that Dr. Bopape touched on. We recently, as a country, recognized the 12th official language, but we continue to see that digital spaces and media spaces are dominated largely by English. We have seen how the Afrikaans community have tried to ensure that they have media that are where Afrikaans is used as a language, and that is largely because of economic reasons. And I think you would have heard in the presentation by Dr. Bopape that usually budget becomes a hindrance when these challenges are faced. So we are seeing this digital dominance. We are now talking about AI, and where are our languages in that space? We continue to see this marginalization, where our languages continue to be neglected. And the question might be, who's neglecting these languages? It's us in the language space. It's us in the media space. It's us as the speakers of these languages, where we continue to have a negative attitude towards the use of our languages. In one of the interactions that I would have had some time back with Prof. Bopape, with Dr. Bopape, was that in spaces such as this one, and that's why I'm also putting myself to blame, to say in spaces such as this one, why are we not using our languages? We are trying to accommodate everyone using English, but why can't we accommodate everyone by using Sepedi, by using Xitsonga, then by using isiZulu? Because this imbalance that we are seeing in terms of languages is creating serious challenges for our linguistic communities, these communities that we say should be served by community media, because they are located in rural areas, and the center of which should be cultural transmission. So rural media or community media in the rural space is indeed occupying a very critical position within this context of language preservation, of cultural neglect, because they serve not merely as communication tools. And that's also some of the things that me, who is outside the media space, observing as a lay person, have come to understand that media is not merely serving as a communication tool, but it's serving as a custodian of our culture and as our ways of knowing and our ways of living. So if we don't really focus on the use of our languages in community media, we are going to be faced with what we call epistemic loss. Because when a language disappears, it does not just disappear alone, it disappears with the unique ways of understanding reality from the different communities. And one of the reasons why I was late to this meeting is because in the morning we were having a meeting with the Director General of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and part of the discussion was around the fact that when language disappears, it goes away with the ways that people used to know and the ways that people use to live their lives. So there is the gradual erosion of indigenous knowledge systems and how people interpret their ways of knowing. As I said, I will skip some of the slides in respect of time, but with this one, I was just trying to show how our languages are divided across the country in terms of the focus of if we are to intentionally say that we are going to work with youth media, we're going to work with online and digital platforms in terms of podcasts, web radio, and social media streamings. Which languages do we then target in the different provinces that we have? But our indigenous languages are repositories of knowledge, and I think that background needs to be laid before we even talk about community media becoming an important part in as far as language is concerned, because they have that is our indigenous languages. They have a multifaceted role. They carry what we call collective memory. They provide philosophy and ethics. We are able to understand cosmology and also environmental knowledge through folklore, through some of the structures of our languages, and that is also the knowledge that community media then needs to play a big role in ensuring that we are able to see where we can utilize our language for the betterment of our communities, because there is a form of what we call cultural archive when we speak about our indigenous languages, because through that archive we are able to interpret our existence. We are able to also preserve ancestral wisdom, and that is what I'm trying to show with the picture that you are seeing there. When we have proverbs, idioms, riddles, there is a form of social regulation that is there. But we have seen that lately, proverbs, idioms, and riddles, particularly that from our languages, are no longer part of the discourse within community media. And that is something that we might need to tap back into, not only to chase numbers, but to have impact in the societies that we are living in. And this is actually part of what I was speaking about, to say within our languages they are actually what we can say some level of sophisticated conceptual systems which are embedded in our languages, and we can only be able to transmit this knowledge that comes from the generations that lived before us through community media and reach rural places because community radio stations and the community newspapers or web platforms such as Siboni, those are the mediums that we can use to ensure that our oral literature, praise poetry, folk tales and rituals are actually passed down to the young generations that we have. We have seen a shift in terms of, and this is one of the things that I usually talk about, the naming system in our cultures, where you would have someone named Eugene because a parent liked a certain chap called Eugene, but we have moved away from the importance of our naming systems. So it is through community media that we can be able to remind our people about the importance of such things, such as the rituals that we have. What do we do when a child is born? What do we do when a child passes away, or when an elder passes away? So we have moved away from that, but community media is able to play that significant role in ensuring that culture is not eroded. If you remember what I showed in the beginning of the slides, you would have seen there was a proverb there, and I assume that most of you might not know the proverb because it has been recently constructed. We are currently in the process of constructing proverbs that will demonstrate our interconnectedness with the new world that we are living in. The proverb that was there, it says, "Koshaya mpatlalachani ke go lla ga dikgogo." So we are talking about the planet Venus, which through our indigenous knowledge, we interpreted it based on when do we see this particular proverb. It appears to us, at least because of the where we were when proverbs were constructed previously, the pre-telescopic era, everything that we saw in the sky, for us it was a star. So even the planets that were visible through the naked eye, we interpreted them as stars. So Venus was called Mpatlalajani when it's seen in the morning. And the construction of this particular proverbs links what happens usually in the morning when you are in the rural places where you would hear the crowing of the roosters. So the construction of this proverb carries a particular way of knowing things, because it also demonstrates how we as a people are interconnected with celestial bodies, and how our celestial observation were interpreted into the way things are known. But young people nowadays would not know those, because we don't have platforms where this particular knowledge is passed down from one generation to the other. So through our indigenous languages, then we are able to have to preserve knowledge systems, intellectual traditions, our cultural identity as well. I'm going to jump this slide, but just to say oral tradition in South Africa preserve multiple forms of indigenous knowledge. Our agricultural knowledge is preserved in oral tradition, medicinal knowledge, ecological observation. We would have seen what happened when we experienced COVID, when people started to know through media that Lengana can assist. So, and because there was communication that came out of that, so it shows the importance of media when this part of our knowledge system is shared with our community, the type of lives that it can be able to, the amount of life that we are able to save. But I want to spend some time on the role of rural community media in language preservation. I did indicate that my presentation will be largely language related, because rural community media play a significant role in preserving our languages. If we did not have newspapers like Siponi, if we did not have radio stations like Muleji FM, we will run a risk of our languages going extinct. We are currently speaking about a language such as Ngu, which has one person who's the last living fluent speaker of that particular language. That is because there was a shift in terms of who are the people who are speaking these languages. Them assimilating to speaking English, for instance, and neglecting their own language where it was not passed from one generation to the other. So these community media institutions, particularly those that are rural-based, be it community radio station, local newspapers, or some of the cultural forums. I've seen recently when I visited Amatlala when we were at Heru Oppenheimer, that the schools in a community called in a circuit called Moroshi, they have what we call digital storytelling platforms where they use indigenous languages to pass down some of the knowledge that the community has to the learners in those communities. So if we have such platforms that daily continues to broadcast in indigenous languages, then we know that local voices, cultural expressions, and community participation will see the light of day. I don't remember if it was Mr. Silowa or I think it was him. He mentioned that community media is the voice of the community. So we need to ensure that they are these particular platforms so that the local voices are also heard. There is cultural expression. If we are going to speak about the language Sepedi or Sesotho Salobua, for example, we cannot only rely on Thobela FM because it's catering for a lot of people who are within the same speech community. So to speak to the issues that people are facing in those communities, then you would need community media to play in that particular space, so that at least we are able to ensure that community media preserve these indigenous knowledges through traditional music, for example, oral history discussions, and some local cultural debates. And those are some of the educational things that we can bring into our media spaces, community media spaces, so that we really address what are the issues of the community members, because one of the most important things is to give the voice to the local languages and to give the voice to the local people. Gone are those days when we would say that if someone speaks English with a twang, it means that they are they are educated, they are more educated than others, or those who wear spectacles, myself, who think that they are smarter, but it's not necessarily that. So it is very important that these platforms that we have continue to allow indigenous languages to function naturally within the what we can call public communication spaces, unlike in instances where you would find formal programming or formal educational programming, which sometimes forces us to move from translating information from English into our languages. So we need to normalize the authentic use of our languages in the contemporary discourse, because when we do that, then we build our communities. There is cultural identity, but most importantly, there will be unity. And people who are living in rural areas will also then feel that they are included and information is accessible. And also referring to the meeting that I had in the morning, part of the conversation was on accessibility of information in respect to linguistic human rights. And that is a space where community media comes in and play a very big role in ensuring that the linguistic rights of speech communities in our different provinces are protected. But we cannot do that if we continue to marginalize our languages, but to also marginalize our knowledge, because it's one thing to use a language in a community media, be it radio or newspaper, but it's another to ensure that that language carries the knowledge of the people that you are communicating to. Because if we continue to rely heavily on translating information that we communicate in our media spaces, then we run a risk of our languages being a carrier of Eurocentric knowledge system. And I don't want to go into the academic politics of the risk to our languages when we focus on Eurocentric knowledge, but just using our languages as vehicles. But those who are in the community media space have the responsibility to ensure that our languages are not merely used as the vehicles, but they are languages that are able to protect the linguistic human rights and the cultural rights and religious rights of the communities that they serve. So they need to be impact in our media. And I think it was the program director who was loading Dr. Bupape for at some point personally funding Siponi. This is when media becomes a calling, because the moment you start to be profit driven, particularly at the community level, then you are going to sell out the identity of the people. You are going to sell out the culture of people. So we need to ensure those who are participating in the language space, in the community media space, to ensure that we create a community that will have a strong sense of cultural pride and identity, which will then culminate to nation building, where people will feel part of the larger community of South Africa through the information that they consume from community media. But also a call to institutions of higher learning particularly those who would then have resources that part of community engagement should be to support community media. And community media, we're not only talking about radio and newspapers. We used to see people gathering under a marula tree and have discussions around the issues that are affecting the community, the issues that are affecting the society in a language that the people speak. That is part of community media, and that also shows intergenerational continuity, that as we are also saving those who are in the digital space, but we should also remember that there are those who have not yet migrated that we need to cater for. So in as much as we have a younger audience who are increasingly consuming digital media, but we also need to say, as we are moving to podcast, YouTube broadcast, we must have those cultural programs that are facilitated through community media. We have in our country what we call a multilingual constitutional framework. So despite us having this beautiful framework, we continue to see digital inequality. And that's why I'm also saying that as part of the responsibility of community media is that in as much as we are migrating to websites where we are hosting our newspapers, the issue of digital divide exists. And our communities, more especially for those who are speaking isiNdebele, for those who are speaking Siswati, Xitsonga, those whose this language becomes their everyday means of communication and means of consuming knowledge, they are not exposed to these platforms. And this leads to what I mentioned earlier, linguistic marginalization, if the focus shift totally to the digital spaces. So we must guard against the marginalization within the technological environment, because most of the platforms, digital platforms, I mentioned something aligned to artificial intelligence systems, the search engines that we have remain dominated by English and other global languages. So there's limited content for our languages, but we are also to blame because we need to produce. In as much as we say that there's negative attitude of readers towards our languages, if we continue to produce, and not just for the sake of production, but for ensuring that we produce quality, we produce content that is relevant. We teach our children about science in our languages, and where there is limitation in terms of terminologies, we take a route of developing terminologies so that our languages becomes rich and we are able to utilize them. I am against the notion that our languages are not developed, because you can have a conversation about any subject in our languages. So community media can also report news about, there's nothing technical, for instance, about Madlanga Commission. If we want to update the community about what is happening in the political space, in the policing space, so that can be done. We are moving towards, as an institution, University of South Africa, where the catalytic niche areas also find expression through our indigenous languages. So community media also can play that role to ensure that each and every subject which the community needs to know find expression in our languages, so that we are able to address the imbalance that creates the challenges of limited indigenous language content online, where there is insufficient African language digital tools.
Sorry, Prof. Sorry, Prof. Sorry to interrupt you. You have 2 minutes left before we close the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So there is that big role that the community media can play, and when we are moving to the digital space, we can also think around things such as audio recording of our oral histories, so that there is that those digital records about who we are as a people, having digital folklore archives and online dictionaries that we would need to develop. So as I conclude, as I conclude, and let me go to the conclusion. So we also, in as much as I say that we have people in our rural place, in our rural communities who are still lagging behind in digital migration, we also can lag behind in the development of our community media to occupy the digital space, so that we don't continue to be excluded. We need to utilize platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, to enable our communities to produce and circulate knowledge in their indigenous languages. So we can't lag behind, but there is a responsibility for community media to ensure that linguistic human rights are protected. If we don't move with times as well, in terms of our languages, in terms of our culture, in terms of how community media operates in respect of the changes that are there in culture and in ways of doing things, then we will continue to lament that our knowledge systems and our languages are marginalized, while we are the ones who are contributing to the marginalization of our languages and our knowledge systems. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for an engaging and insightful presentation, and thank you for sharing your perspectives. The contemporary media space is ever shifting, as you mentioned in your presentation, and that our indigenous knowledge systems should not be sidelined, as they are repositories of our cultural and language archives. For us in the media and communication space, we should be mindful that community media is the custodian of our culture, informing ways of our living, and we should ensure that there is not an epistemic loss. We loved it when you mentioned folklore, which reminded us as the program directors of our childhoods and the stories that we heard as children, which we've retained now as adults.